Every show that I've ever produced, I gotta get you in and intrigued in the first 30 seconds. If I don't have you in that first 30 seconds, you're gonna change the channel. What I can't do is sell you everything in the first 30 seconds, because then you're also then gonna change the channel. So I've got to just tease you. I got to tickle you just a little bit. So you've got to understand what your promise is. And then I can set up a little bit of the world.
From the team at Sales Loop, it's How to Sell More. I'm your host, Mark Drager, and each week we bring you a master class to tackle the biggest challenge and to take advantage of the biggest opportunity we all face, and that's growing revenue. So whether you're a business owner or a marketing professional, I'm here to help you succeed in sales, even if it doesn't come naturally to you. Now, today we're talking about how to win your pitch with tips from a television producer. And to help us explore this topic is a television producer, Brad Holcman, a four-time Emmy-nominated television producer who has turned real estate investor and who, frankly, has mastered the art of storytelling in business through this blend of business and television and stories. Now, a few quick highlights about Brad before we get into the conversation. So, as a four-time Emmy nominee, he's developed and produced groundbreaking series like A&E's Intervention and 60 Days In and Duck Dynasty. And through these experiences and many, many other shows he's been a part of, he's learned firsthand what makes a story almost impossible to ignore. So through this weird blend of combining his storytelling expertise with television, with real estate innovations, he's been able to also oversee hit series like Triple Digit Flip, Zombie House Flipping, and he's been able to successfully transition from the corporate media landscape executive as a leading producer to becoming an entrepreneur. And now he teaches others how to leverage compelling narratives to be able to transform their brands and frankly, to close more deals, to sell more. So what a beautifully strange collection of experiences that frankly, I've known Brad now for a little over about a year and a half. And I was like, when I saw him in September in person, we're at an event, we're at a beach, having a few drinks. I was like, I have got to bring you on the podcast and talk about storytelling techniques as it relates to pitching, because so many times we just show up and just talk and features, benefits, but storytelling and crafting the perfect pitch is so important. And so we get into this and a whole lot more on this topic. It's an amazing conversation. It's like sitting down with a friend, and we just frankly had a lot of fun. So with all that said, I am so excited to share with you the conversation I had with Brad Holcman. So Brad, I was lucky enough to have you on my other podcast, The Mark Drager Show, about a year and a half ago. And it was one of the most fun episodes that I've had, because even though I very long time ago started my career in television, I went to film school, I started in television and news and what have you, I've spent very little time speaking to someone who's spent 20 plus years in the entertainment and the television industry, literally at A&E and at Fox, producing unscripted television shows. And you have seen thousands of pitches as people have brought you their ideas and they've said, please turn this into a TV show. And then on the other side, you have had to pitch hundreds and possibly even thousands of times to be able to get the money you need to be able to make creative television. So I wanted to bring you onto How to Sell More because I thought there'd be no one else who would have the experience you have to help us figure out how to pitch based on story. I'm good with features and benefits, but how do we pitch based on story? Where do we start with this?
Boy, well, thank you, Mark, for having me. And your other podcast was fantastic. I have to be a little bit biased. I'm sure this is going to be better than the other one, right? Because everything gets better.
Oh, it always gets better, right? As we go.
It always gets better. So it's a big question you asked. How do we start with story? I think the biggest thing is you can tell the best story in the world, but if the other person that's listening is not at all connected with that story, it doesn't matter. I can't bring somebody over that doesn't want to be over. I think the biggest thing to know, probably walking into a pitch beforehand, and in fact, I just did this today, is what's your biggest pain point? What's the problem you're having? And that's how you create the story around. And what you're selling, hopefully, supports that. Exactly from the first sentence, they hear something that connects with the problem that they're having, they're going to be on your ride. But if it's, I need apples and you're selling oranges, I don't care how good the orange story is. It's just a story. Stories don't just, you don't just passively listen to story. I don't think. I think the greatest stories cause you to lean in and take action. So whether it be I'm selling a product, I'm selling a proposal, I'm selling a business, or I'm just selling myself as somebody that maybe I'm your friend, or we could do something down the road, there's got to be that connective tissue, because apples don't sell oranges, but apples do sell other types of apples. And you've just got to be on that same wavelength. So if you don't know that, that's the first question that you ask. If you don't know already, is what is your biggest pain point? What's the one thing that you just causes you some sort of problem? Or what's the one thing you've been dying to do? And then you quickly know what you have. And that's how you formulate your pitch and your story, because somebody that is a seller should come with experience, come with a million stories. So you quickly go into that vault up there somewhere. And I know I have stories for days. If you told me what are 20 great stories, I couldn't tell you. But if it was specific towards something we're talking about, undoubtedly, I'll probably pull something from that bank that I have in my head to then connect with you based on either experience that I've had or maybe another customer or audience has. So you've got to be at least on that first wavelength together so that you're speaking in the same universe and language.
And so I imagined your response was going to be something different. I thought we were going down the path of imagine this with a bit of this. Okay. Open frame, or like something much more how I imagine shit gets pitched in Hollywood or something.
No, it's not.
But you brought us right back to like just sales 101, like connect with people, understand their pain, all of that stuff.
But it's the hook. So when you think about every show that I've ever produced, the first 30 seconds is if you as an audience member are want to stay with the show or not. If I'm producing a film and it's 2 hours, you've paid ticket, you're going to a theater to watch, then I don't need to do that, because I got you for 2 hours. Yeah, you may walk out of the theater, but the chances of that are happening probably slim and none. But if you watch a scripted television show and an unscripted television show, undoubtedly that first 30 seconds is a hook. And if I don't have you in that first 30 seconds, you're gonna change the channel. So for me, all my programming, it's funny, I've never even really thought about that because I've been in the television world so long. Film is exactly what you described. You paint this beautiful picture, this universe, this world, you suck me in there, and then you spit me back out after 2 hours. Television, I gotta get you in and intrigued in the first 30 seconds. What I can't do is sell you everything in the first 30 seconds, because then you're also then going to change the channel. So I've got to just tease you. I got to tickle you just a little bit. And then I can set up a little bit of the world. You know, I can say, okay, and here we are now. Because if you don't do that either, then what are you watching? But really, for me, just like Sales 101, which, by the way, I never knew that I was selling 101. That was just who I was. So when I'm starting to learn about sales, I'm like, wait a minute, I've been doing that for 20 years. You know, I've been selling like a very professional salesperson, just differently. So for me, it's with the content that I make and that I sell, or products that I'm future going to sell, I got to really connect you very quickly to why you need to be watching this or consuming this. That's exactly what we do in television. That's the only way to hook you.
And so I have spent probably more time than most, because I'm interested in it, because I love it, because whatever, over the years, listening to podcasts, reading stories about different storytelling techniques. And whether there's this technique called the E timeline, where if you closed your eyes, listener, if you're driving, please don't close your eyes. But if you have the chance to close your eyes and you thought of the way a shape of a lowercase e looks, you start the story at the beginning of the straight line and you move forward. And so you introduce a little bit of story, a little bit of timeline, a little bit of characters, and then you stop and you say, but wait, let's go back. And so you go over the loop all the way back in time, and then you start to establish what happened in the past. And then now as you start to move forward again, you now catch up to where the story started and you move past the beginning of the story. And there are these different types of techniques that I've learned, and I thought, my God, they're great. And once you understand them, you can start to see how they're using them. Many movies open this way, right? With the main scene, the biggest scene, the gentleman with Matthew McConaughey. That movie starts where he's sitting in a pub and he sits down and we're not sure who's who or whatever. And a gunshot goes off and it's clearly someone's been killed. But then we go back in time and then we catch up to that moment and then we move past that initial moment. So I geek out and I love these types of techniques from a storytelling point of view, from a pitching point of view, from how we can help draw people in. Do any of those types of things matter, or really at the end of the day, is it much more about the hook, about finding the problem, about personal connection? Is it more conversational perhaps when you're pitching these big ideas, these big creative ideas than I'm laying it out?
It's so funny. Just recently, I've learned that there's actually techniques in storytelling. I swear to God, I did not go to school for entertainment. In fact, I went to school for business. I started out in business. The only reason I'm in entertainment is because of a girl that I was dating. Right. And she did not want me to be in entertainment. And when we broke up, I decided to go into entertainment. That's a fact. That was many moons ago. And I thank her every day. I wouldn't be in the position I'm in if she didn't break up with me. It's in LA. So honestly, I don't know any of this. What I am, though, is I'm a student of watching television. And I'm a student of the craft that I'm in. Even just the word craft feels weird because I'm just making entertainment. Now, I know what I like to watch. What I like to watch is give me something to make me spend the next hour with you. And I am not a film watcher. I knew very early in my career that I did not want to read 120-page scripts nor watch 2-hour movies. I also like somewhat of an instant or a delayed gratification. And film was not that. It was instant gratification because you got everything in 2 hours. Whereas in TV, if you have a great character, I can create that character over 100 hours. How cool is that? And I could see them evolve. So I've never been of technique. The hero's journey. The hero's journey is a very standard technique or so. I think it was 4 months ago that I really learned what that meant. And I was like, wait a minute. I literally have been just organically doing that my entire career. I do not follow any prescription. I'm from Detroit. I'm a Midwest boy that grew up loving television. And I'm so lucky to have made television for so long that I'm making it for my young self. What do I want to be watching? And I believe that I'm the masses. I am not a critical person that only watches Emmy award-winning films or Emmy award-winning television shows and Oscar award-winning films. In fact, I somewhat reject those. I'm mass TV. I like to influence the masses. How do you influence the masses? You got to give them something that they didn't really know that they wanted. That's what hooks them even more. Because if you speak to somebody that already is saying yes, you're probably not going to have an in-depth relationship with them because it starts kind of surface area and you can only go so deep. But if it's somebody that's like here for the entertainment and then you hook them and you're like, oh, wait, I didn't expect that because I didn't have any preconceived notions, then you really have them. So I tried to not dumb down my shows, but really speak to the masses of like, why does somebody need to be hearing this or watching this right now? And again, going back to the 30 seconds, if you saw my history of notes, so part of my job for the last 12 years was I helped create the show. I helped the journey of the show, but really a lot of my time was spent on crafting the show to get to air. Every frame of television, I was the last person who saw it before it went to air. And I really concentrated on that first 30 seconds.
So are you the guy giving those studio notes that everyone complains about?
No, I'm worse. I'm the network note. So studios actually employ the creative. The network employs the studio. So we're the worst because guess what the studio can't say is no, because we're the money people too. So without our check, they can't feed. Now, I very early established me as a collaborator. If you want to object to my note, do it all day long, but you got to back it up. You can reject 100% of my notes, but I have to know why for 2 reasons. 1, because I just have to know why. But 2, I want to be better. I am not right 100% of the time. I consider myself to be an all-star baseball player. I'm right 3 out of 10 times. That's an all-star baseball player. All right. I think if in entertainment, if you're right 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer because it's mostly failures. Most 90% of shows don't get past their first season. I think it's actually higher than that. So just to continue on and to be a winner, it's a very rare feat. So I am that guy that gave notes, and the notes that I gave really cared about that open, that first 30 seconds, that first minute, that first 2 minutes, because the middle, you're not really leaving. Once you've got the product, once you understand, you're really not leaving. Then I also focus, and I think this is part of the sales process too, is that last 30 seconds, that last minute. That's how I convert somebody from a fan to a customer, because I don't just get paid on that 1 hour. I get paid on 100 hours. That's where you really make money. If I'm hooking you up top for you to stay with me for the hour, I got to leave you wanting more. I got to leave you wanting to consume the next episode. So that last 30 seconds, what about it just goes, I can't stop watching. I can't stop watching. So I think that's the perfect comparison to sales too, is I'm not staying for your webinar if you haven't hooked me in the beginning. I'm not buying your product if you haven't sold me at the end and basically, if I don't watch the next episode, I'm missing out. That's the whole point of the sales process too, right? There's a little bit of that in a product. Like, you have to act now. You want to get this in your hands. You want to do this now. Same thing with us. That's how I get you. There's a million places to consume content and a million shows, but I want you to watch a second episode of me or a second hour. So how do you do it? Up top and the bottom of each episode.
You have just reminded me of something that I didn't even realize that I had learned along the way.
What's that, Mark?
Because if I think back to when I first started my agency, 2006, I was shooting we were talking earlier about PD 150s, these old Sony cameras and stuff. And so I was shooting on tape, I was digitizing, I was editing, I had film. We started as a video production company in 2006, the agency. And I was doing everything, but I would get all this footage back. It was all corporate. It was all very doc driven. It was all reality based. I'd get this footage back and I would have certain really great sound bites and certain kind of garbage things. And I would look through all of the footage. I would look at all of the sound bites, all of the messaging, all of the things we have to work with. And I would go, what is the very best thing? We got to start with that. What is the second best thing? Oh, we got to end with that. What goes in the middle? Like, frankly, just whatever will get us from point A to point C. I don't know if I really care what happens in the middle. I mean, like, we have the very best thing and we have the second best thing. Let's just do whatever we have to do to stitch it together. And as the agency grew and as we've worked on many more works over the last almost 20 years, I sit with my content team and I look at blog posts or articles we're writing and I go, what is like the title? The title is the curiosity hook. It's the promise of what will come if I give this my attention. It's slightly interesting. It gives me a little bit of context. I think I know what's happening, but I'm not sure. Like, the title has to do a lot, and the subheadlines and the bullet points have to do a lot. But by the end of this thing, if I read this thing or if I give it a bit of time, like it better deliver on the promise. What is that promise? And then in the middle, it's kind of like whatever has to be there to get me from the title to the promise at the end. I mean, like, the middle doesn't really matter that much. And I say this to people, and you help me realize that most people don't understand what I'm talking about. But now I know why.
Yeah. Well, let me even go before that too. You got to get somebody to show up to that first 30 seconds or that pitch. So you've got the first, very important first part, very important last part, but even the pre-part arguably is where we don't spend enough time on. How do you get somebody there, to somebody to the pitch, to show up, to be ready to be hooked in that first few minutes? And I wouldn't say I'm a student, but I like learning from people that are best in class, that have paved the path ahead of us. And one of those people is P.T. Barnum. And P.T. Barnum knew that the product he was selling was outstanding. But if you just sold the product that he was selling, it'd probably be a little earnest. It wouldn't make sense. It was definitely left of center. So what he did was he did anything and everything to get somebody into the seats. And he was bonkers on marketing. He was bonkers on selling. And sometimes it didn't even connect, but it was intrigue that just got somebody in the door to hear that first 5 minutes. And then he concentrated very much so. That first thing would blow your mind away, because he did build up all these expectations that something was going to be big and different. And if he didn't pay off in the first few minutes, he would walk out, or at least he was fearful of that. So I think you've got the first, you've got the last, and then you've got the pre. It's that sell. It's so for the content world, it's the 30-second spot. It's what's intriguing to pull you in that gives you enough to go, okay, maybe I'll stop everything and watch the first 30 seconds. Traditionally in entertainment, that's been produced by somebody that's disconnected with the content. And I always thought that was incorrect. I think the team of somebody that knows how to sell in 30 seconds to 60 seconds combined with the creative that knows how to create an hour with those hooks, that is a force to reckon with. And what I try to do, at least my control, is work with those individuals because I know 1 + 1 = 11. I really did. Sometimes others didn't feel that way, or sometimes felt, okay, my job is this, my job is that. I'm a marketer, I'm a creative, but I think it goes hand in hand. So I don't think we talk enough about how do you get people there? Because if you're there, you have a great product and your 30 seconds pitch is exactly what you want, but you're not there to hear it. Who cares? Who cares about what that is? So for me, the selling and the pitch, it is a lot before, almost little before and after. And then we can also talk about the after. What pulls you keep going? What pulls you in? How do you deliver on promise? Because that's the other thing is if I'm selling up top, I get you in there in the first 30 seconds, and then you watch this entire thing. At the end, you're like, wait a minute, huh? It's like the trailer to a movie that is the best 2 minutes of 2 hours, and there literally is nothing else. You got to have something in the 2 hours or the hour. But yeah, I always think about, that's why I work very hard on how do I get you in the seat? And what about it will pay off even more beyond your ever imagine. I can tease you, but I want to over deliver once you're there as well.
Hey there, it's Mark. We will get right back to my talk with Brad. But first, just wanted to take a quick moment to share with you how I can help you grow your business. So at Sales Loop, my award-winning B2B branding and marketing agency, we partner with leaders like you, people who are ready to take their brand, their marketing, their messages, their sales, their businesses to the next level. And my team and I, we help build out bold, strategic brands that share company stories, that have tighter sales messages, that have more strategic landing pages and videos and sales tools. And we do all of this to ensure that we can set you apart from the competition in your prospects' minds to ultimately drive sales. So as a listener of this podcast, I know you know how focused I am on helping businesses stand out and sell more. And I might just be able to help your company too. So if you have any questions about this or working with us or any of the strategies we cover in this episode or any others, really, I'd love to connect with you. You can find me over on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out anytime. And if you'd like to learn more about the work I do day to day with my agency, you can go to salesloopbrand.com. So with that, let's get back to the show. So a lot of our listeners run organizations that have services tied to it, professional services. And it's interesting because I think it's often underappreciated how much of a bet or risk a prospect or a customer is taking when someone moves forward with anyone who's providing services. So if I go to the Apple store and I can pick up the phone and I can pick up the tablet and I can read some stuff and I can learn about some stuff and I can touch it and have a tactile experience and watch some demos and kind of imagine myself doing it, I can understand that buying experience, that shopping experience. I can understand what will be delivered. It makes sense. If I get audited and I'm working with a forensic tax accountant through an audit process I've never been a part of, I don't think there's anything they could say to me to help me understand what's about to happen, but I'm probably going to pick the person that I know, like, trust, budget, confidence, whatever it is. And so it's underappreciated, I think, by many business owners and many marketers and service-based businesses that really the people we're talking to don't really understand what the hell's about to happen, or they've missed misconceptions about how easy it'll be, how fast it'll be, how cheap it should be, whatever it might be. And so they don't know that. And they underestimate the fact that we're really kind of just buying off of know, like, trust. And so you are selling, and I'm hoping you can help connect some of these dots. If you think about these listeners, you are selling a concept, you're selling a pitch, you're selling a story. I'm sure there's a framework and there's an idea and maybe a format and a personality and you have a budget and timelines and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, they are buying an intangible concept. How do you sell that in the context of know, like, trust, like I just explained?
It's funny you say that because I've really been thinking about just recently I started posting every day. And as a byproduct of that, I have built unexpected trust in areas that I absolutely am not an expert in, but I'm talking about it. And people are literally watching my journey real time. And they're coming to me for advice and expertise on things that I don't have 20 years of. So for me, that trust, when I look at my career, if there's a production company or somebody that has made something and they're pitching me something and they've done something really well, they've built the trust, they've built the narrative. I understand that they can do the job. Whether or not the new thing that they're giving to me is going to be exactly the results of the other thing, we'll never know. I can't control that. But what I can control is that I believe that this company is best in class in what they do. And my goal is for them to deliver that to me.
Did they show that to you? Did they talk about it? Did they show it to you? Did you reference it? Did you do your own research? How are they convincing you of this?
The best don't have to. I think seeing everything. So I think I'm going to mess this up, but closed mouths don't get fed. I think that's somewhat the line. I think you've got to be promoting yourself, promoting your goods, talking about you so that when you go into the pitch, you don't have to do any of that, so that there's already an understanding of what you do. If you have to sell yourself as the right person, you probably haven't done enough selling to get to that point, or you're talking to the wrong person. So I'm walking into a pitch next week with something that it's an industry that I have no experience in, and I really haven't done exactly the job or what I'm pitching them to do, but there is a connection to my 20-year career. Now, if I'm walking into them and they don't know who I am or my background, why they're meeting with me, then we'd be starting from a negative place. And then I would have to then get them to that zero place or that even place. And then now I'm going to pitch them why they need these services. But because I've already built this narrative based on my career, I've been talking about my past and how my past connects to other industries. I'm walking into this meeting, them going, I already know who you are. I already know why you're great. We just need to talk about what you're doing. Does it fit with our needs? So I have built the trust, but I haven't intentionally built the trust to them. I have just talked about who I am and what I am, and what I'm pitching or what I'm talking about has a connection to it. So if you think about walking into a meeting and you have to sell yourself, you haven't sold enough before. You just need to be selling what you're going to do for them and how it's going to connect to their needs. That's the most important thing. That's all they care about. So I think the best people get the jobs, they get the customers over, they get the people that trust them. Hey, think about a coach. No coach can convince you that you're going to get a 10x return on your investment or whatever the return is. Nobody. But if I've seen them out there, I've heard testimonials, I know people that I can talk to, and they themselves say, hey, I did the work and this was the return. And they're probably intentionally having those stories be told. People don't just give testimonials. Generally, there's a little bit of literally that just happened today. Somebody whose book came out today, who I adore and love. I didn't read the entire book, but I read a portion of it, said, hey, do me a favor. Can you write a review on Amazon? And I'm like, yeah, why? Because I know that, one, they wrote a book, so they got to know something. I know where it came from. And they built the trust with me and the community. Now they need other people that don't know them to build that trust so that they're going to buy the book because other people have provided that narrative for him, because he can't go in and give him his own testimonial. You need other people. So it's just building that. So I've learned very quickly that you have to ask for these things and you have to build that around you, and you have to talk about it. But if it's at the pitch moment, you're doing that, I think that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a lot of bit more difficult to get that job or that customer to come over you. When I think about gurus and coaching and in these people, I would imagine if you really looked at their conversion rate, there was already a yes before they even went into a sales call. You just had to get that yes to the yes. It wasn't a discovery call. I think that's what people call it. Let's do a discovery call. They're doing the discovery call because they really want to say yes, because they've already done that due diligence on you. You've already been sold. Now it's just, I need to sign on the dotted line. So convince me. But if you're not doing any of that, you haven't built the community, you haven't built who you are and your reputation and the ability to say or to deliver on what you're selling, you shouldn't be doing it in that sales pitch.
I think you've just made a great case for the importance of branding and the importance of building a reputation and all of those elements. Obviously, it's a bit different from inbound versus outbound sales, but if we ignore outbound for now, I mean, I suppose the invitation to the meeting is your pass, is credibility enough. The fact that you have the time, the fact that you have the meeting, the fact that there's some interest. I wanted to circle around on one thing you had mentioned earlier about that first 30 seconds. And the importance of the first 30 seconds and how you can't jam it all in to the first 30 seconds. And that is something that I know that a lot of people fall into traps of. This is how it's manifested, right? I'm doing an elevator pitch and I want to try and mention everything in the pitch in the first few lines. I'm creating a website and I want everything on the website. Not only everything on the website, on the homepage, at the top of the page, how do we get everything into the homepage and the top of the page? And this is in email, and this is in letters, and it's almost as if like we only have one shot. We only have one opportunity, and people are only going to give us 3 seconds of their time. How do we get them to know everything about us? When you are doing this on landing pages or websites or emails or anything else, it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. But having produced the amount of video content we've produced and the amount of television you've produced, linear storytelling, we have to choose what we share in what order because there is no choose your own adventure. There is no scanning. We have to make these choices as producers to tell a linear story in a certain way. So how do you decide, if you can't jam all of it off the top, how do you decide what should be in and what should be out?
When you say that's a good question, it means you're thinking about your answer. I'll be very transparent. I don't have all the answers. In terms of what you choose, my gut's been wrong, but it's been more right than wrong. So generally that first 30 seconds only happens after you've gone through the entire, with the episode. So for me, an edit, right? So I'm not editing live. You're not pitching live, or you're not pitching something that you haven't you thought of before. So you have all the data. So your gut is, if it's a first few times, it's what really am I solving here? What is that one big thing? And that's your headline. Think about a newspaper. To get me to get a newspaper or a cover of a book or a magazine, they can't put all the articles on above the line, above the fold. They can't put all the articles on the front page. They generally choose one. So they think, okay, what's the one that's probably going to hit the masses? Also, what am I promising that's distinct and different from the sea of the same? So you've got to understand what your promise is. So if you are, again, very basic, if you are coaching people on how to invest in real estate, very broad topic, and I ask you why you, over the other 100 people that are pitching how to invest in real estate, if you don't know that answer, then I can't help you with that first 30 seconds. Because I know all of the people that I'm friends with, and I can tell them just based on their content, who they are as people, what they're teaching, while they're different than everybody else. The output could be exactly the same. Coaching program, investing in real estate, financial freedom, all the buzzwords. But the process and how they get there, there's something in there that makes them unique and distinct. And then you just have to understand from the customer or the person that you're attracting, is that going to speak to them? So if you're speaking to Texans and you have a Hawaii pitch, it's never going to work. So you also have to understand your audience and who you're pitching, because that's got to connect. Then what you have to do after that first few, then you just got to listen and you got to talk to people and you ask that question, what convinced you to say yes? If you get very similar answers, rinse and repeat, do it over and over and over again. If you get a lot of answers, okay, still great because they said yes, but probably not the best. So one, I think you have to really go with gut and go, here's how I'm distinct and different. By the way, that's been a struggle of mine too, because I've never had to do that before. Now I have to do it. Now it's pretty obvious for me because I'm the only guy that has my background that's living in this entrepreneurial world. As far as I know, there's very few of me. And I know that by talking to people like you, I listen and I'm like, oh, wait, you never know it until you talk to somebody that doesn't know. So that's also probably something else that I would suggest is Talk to people that know nothing about what you're selling and sell them. And then you ask the question, okay, what was distinct and different about it? What intrigued you? What got you to think maybe I want this? And if it's something that's repeated, then I think there's something strong there. And that's what we do on our shows is we do have an idea leading up to it. What is that log line? What's that one sentence that's going to grab the audience? But we don't lean into that until we have the goods, because what may happen is something totally different. So you watch and you're being part of the journey and you're like, okay, what is the sell to an audience member that gets them, one, to show up at the beginning in the first place, show up at the first place. And two, what about this hour? Because most of my hours have a beat or a scene that's probably in act 3 or act 5 or act 6 or act 2. I could even tease something that happens after the episode ends. Because now you're on the journey of the entire episode to get to that. And then guess what happens at the end of the episode? It's really the end scene that leads into what I just showed you up top, so I can get you to the next episode. Like, these are all, they're not techniques, they're not purposeful, they're just the best storytelling, at least from my mind. But yeah, it goes down to, you got to know what makes you distinct and different. And that's how you push it forward, because that's it's going to separate you from everybody else. And you have that. Everybody has that. Everybody's unique. Everybody's a snowflake. You're different. And if you're not, then don't create something that's inauthentic, because that's the other whole part. We haven't even talked about this, is authenticity. So many people, if I didn't care about friends and being friends with people, I would have very honest takes of individuals that I would die to help them, that just come across as inauthentic, because I don't believe they're selling who they are, what they are. I think they're selling what they believe is going to get them another customer. And the last thing you want is somebody walking into the world and going, oh, that's not who or what I thought was going to happen. Think about a storefront. You walk into the storefront because you're intrigued about what's going to be inside the store, and the store is completely something different. You're going to walk right out. You're not going to buy anything. There's so many analogies to this, but yeah, the biggest thing is you have to know what makes you distinct and different. And if you don't, talk to people, because they likely will see something that you don't see in yourself.
I remember having this moment about midway, I guess, through my career. So like, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago, let's say. And I wrote a white paper on strategy behind creating great content. I developed the system through many questions and many, many mistakes, where we would, if someone came to us for work, we would say, okay, so there's 3 levels of objectives. There's corporate objectives, there's campaign objectives, and then the objectives of the media asset itself. Okay. So let's break that down. Then there's target audiences, primary audiences, and secondary audiences. Then there's motivations. What are the motivations of each? And then there's distribution channel, because the channel you're speaking with and the context that this is dropping will affect anything. And then there's message. And so I had developed this system because everyone wanted to rush to message right away. And you'd sit in front of a blinking screen and you'd go, how the hell do you write anything? Like, whatever, I'm 23, 24. How am I supposed to write something for a pharmaceutical company? I have no idea. So I developed all these frameworks, but I wrote this white paper and I got a call from someone I really respected, who was about 20 years older than me, leading a consulting strategy firm. And this person had been the CMO for 2 different beer companies at 2 different points in their career, launched an entertainment company as the CMO, and then decided to break out on their own. And he calls me into his office. Like, I go downtown, I sit down in the office, and he wants to talk, and he's in a suit, and it's a beautiful place, and I'm just some kid. And he pulls up my white paper and he starts shaking it at me. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what is happening? And he goes, I expect this kind of stuff from us. I don't expect this kind of stuff from you. You're creative. And I was thinking, I didn't know I was a creative. I went to film school. I thought I want to be a strategist. I love strategy. I thought I was a strategist. Yeah. I was a little offended. He called me a creative. And then he started asking me a million questions about like stuff. And I realized this guy is so experienced, has done all of these amazing things. And he's asking all these really stupid questions to me. Like, why are you asking these? And I realized, oh, he doesn't know anything of, like, I am boots on the ground. Like, and I had this moment of clarity where I went from being intimidated to being like, oh man, I can help him. Oh, he's not dressing me down. He saw something and he realized maybe I can ask this guy some stuff. And it changed everything for me in that moment.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody, like, I did a 360 feedback many moons ago, and it's all about what other people see in you. And it's generally people at your level, above you or below you in the hierarchical world of corporations. The best and worst day of my life. Others saw something in me that I never saw. Never. But I was so thankful because now I had the knowledge to do something about it. And now it was on me. And if I didn't change and said, well, that's who I am, Mark, then that's my fault. But I took the opposite and I said, wow, I have an opportunity to be better now, and thank you to all the people that responded. I may have been in tears, but those tears happened to be the best tears of my life. I wasn't happy then. I was crushed. I was crushed because, of course, I went to how many years have been people thinking about this? I wish I would have known earlier. And then I quickly changed that where I thank God that this happened on this day and that not a day went by so that I could change things. So I do think that, going back to pitching and knowing who your audience is and how you connect with your audience, it's really about conversation, seeing what other people see in you, your pitch, what you're selling, rather than what you see. You need both, certainly, but you have to have both to sell properly. And that's been a lot of my change is we're very much about how do we help ourselves, and we organically and unconsciously, you want something out of something. Like if you're looking for a sale, you're looking for the yes, but we have to also really think, arguably even more so, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about you have such a gift to help somebody. I just need to understand and connect with what they need help with. And can I provide that services? And sometimes, guess what? You're not the right person. Sometimes they walk into your store and you're not going to sell them that sweatshirt. And that's fine. One, they walked into your store, and if you're providing the best environment and you're like, you know what? This is Gap. You're better for J. Crew. You're always going to remember that they referred you to either a competitor or someone else because at that time you weren't the right fit. And then 2 years later, remember when Gap referred me to J. I'm going to go back. So be that person, that if you're not that right person, you've told the great story, you've connected, and it just didn't work out on either side, or it was a collective, it doesn't work out. Just lead with kindness, lead with heart, because you never know what's going to happen a year, 2 years. I had somebody reach out to me that I was in business with 15 years ago. Why? Because I was kind to them. And they remembered that for 15 years. And now I'm in business with them. I hadn't spoken to them in 15 years. And they just remember that day. And I was like, wow. So again, that doesn't happen overnight. You cannot build overnight. You have to every day show up, be your best self, and keep laying down that seeds and just helping others. Be that kind. Because then when that pitch happens, maybe they're even just saying yes because they want to be in business with you because you built that runway. How many times have we said yes to something just because proximity over somebody? We don't know how it's going to be or what it's going to be or what this means, but we just want to be around that person because they built that runway. So again, for me, pitches happen way before the actual pitch, going back to that. You yourself have built that runway, and then you likely have gotten them in the room from something else that leads directly to that pitch. The pitch almost should be an exclamation point or just a sign on the dotted line.
And that was my conversation with Brad Holcman. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Brad and what he's doing with his storytelling and his strategy work and his content production and real estate and how these things all blend, you can follow along his journey on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, really on all the social places. And you can feel free to reach out to him. Feel free to connect with Brad. He's an amazing guy. But be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming ventures, both on the entertainment side and the ed tech side. And now, while you're over on LinkedIn connecting with Brad, feel free to look me up as well. My name is Mark Drager. My details are in the episode show notes, and I would love to connect with you over there. One last thing. If you're still listening, if you still hear my voice, if you made it this far into the show, you really should subscribe. And here's why. Each and every week, I share actionable tips and advice, just like what Brad shared with us today, to grow your business, grow your marketing, grow leads, and ultimately to boost sales. So with that, I want to thank you for listening. It does mean a lot to me. And we're going to wrap up this episode. I am Mark Drager, and I will catch you in the next one.